That thing Genesis told me worked. It does stream. Once I hit stream, it starts recording too.
Oh, woohoo!
So I don't forget. Alright. Um, did it not update the... Oh, I didn't update it. Title's updated. There it goes. Okay. Yeah, we are not doing patron chat.
Yeah, I see. I see the episode name.
And I tweeted it. Sweet.
Alright.
Before we start, though, IGN did a poll of all, like, the fan favorite Star Wars games. Guess what won number one?
I'm gonna assume it was either KOTOR or the Old Republic MMO.
KOTOR.
Yeah.
Very close behind, surprisingly. I'm not shocked because it is new. Fallen Order was really close behind, with KOTOR 2 right after that. Actually, in the top 10, Old Republic's not even in there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it goes KOTOR, Fallen Order, KOTOR 2, the original Battlefront 2 from 2005, Force Unleashed, the original Battlefront from 04. Number 7 will be Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast. Then it goes to Force Unleashed 2, Republic Commando, and then Jedi Academy. Which, I mean, all great games, regardless. It's Star Wars. But that newest episode of Obi-Wan, oh my god.
It was amazing.
I was kind of shocked on the things Disney had in that episode. If you know the grid, that grid scene, I was very shocked to see that. On screen, anyway. But, alright. Ready to start the show whenever you are.
Just hold on 1 second, getting all the things
good.
back where they need to go. Okay. There we go. Now I am set up. All right.
All right. And let's roll.
This podcast is part of the Robots Radio Rocket Club, a program designed to help all podcasts reach their full potential. For information about joining the Robots Radio Rocket Club, check out robotsradio.net.
Welcome to Holocron Histories, Star Wars Canon versus Legends, where we're going to take a deep dive into the lore of the Star Wars universe.
Well, hello and welcome to the Holocron Histories podcast, where we discuss all things legends and canon regarding the Star Wars universe. I am one of your hosts, Teacup, also known as Austin.
And I am Ben of Temeria.
And we are back at it. Last week we had our patron chat, and we are back this week to continue with our discussion of the various factions, entities, governments of the Star Wars universe. And so, Ben, what do we got today?
So today we have the most well-known one next to, the Galactic Republic. We have the Galactic Empire. So everybody knows the Galactic Empire from day one of Star Wars. They're the main antagonists, you could say. At least the antagonists are part of it. So yeah, that's what we got. I mean, and then after this, we're going to get more into the smaller factions. This is the last big one we're really going to get into. So as far as Legends goes, and hopefully, I mean, there's a lot of info, so I'm going to try and get through this a lot quicker than the last time we did a faction episode. And a lot of this does go into canon too, which is good. The Empire was said to have begun with the scheming aspiration of the Sith Lord Dark Sidious. Known as his alter ego as Senator Palpatine of Naboo, he was inspired by the resurrected Sith Empire, which dominated the galaxy over 3 millennium earlier. So, that Sith Empire being Darth Bane's, if I recall, right?
Maybe. Hold on.
Might have been. It might have been Bane's. I can't remember on the top of my head. But and then
So no, that is not.
No, it's not Bane.
It's not Bane.
Whose was it?
It's referring to the like Sith Empire
Just as a whole.
following the Great Hyperspace War.
Oh, okay.
But I would say that, like, you bring up an interesting point right away, because I would argue that the Galactic Empire in its like start and ideology begins with Darth Bane.
Yeah, because the rule of two.
Right, and he sets that up, and like when you read the Bane novels, not going to get too spoilerly, but when you read them, you really understand that like this whole idea that Bane gets at is so that what Palpatine wants to happen will happen. Like that is the end goal of the rule of two. So I would argue that it begins with Bane. Probably, okay. You could probably also argue that it begins with Plagueis, or Plagueis. Pelagius is a medieval theologian and heretic, but Plagueis is a Sith Lord. So yeah.
Yeah, I can agree with that. It does really start with Bane more than just the Sith Empire as a whole prior. So in 24 BBY, so this is during the Clone Wars, Dooku helped found the Confederacy and Independent Systems, which we talked about earlier. Formation of the Separatist Council, led again by Newt Gunray, on Rexus Prime, igniting the Separatist crisis. Palpatine, at the end of his second term, was allowed to stay in power until the crisis resolved, which eventually led to the Clone Wars, which started the first Battle of Geonosis in 22 BBY. At the beginning of the Clone Wars, Palpatine was an efficient and effective leader who quickly brought to an end of the corruption of the Senate. His authority was greatly increased, even more so than at the start of the Separatist crisis, via acting Senator Jar Jar Binks, while the Senate willingly furnished, as they gave him more emergency powers to him. So, if you listened to our Patreon chat last week, we do talk about Darth Jar Jar, which this kind of can go into that. But not going to get into that.
Right, and it's a point of like Palpatine just keeps kind of creating reasons of why he needs to stay in power, whether or not those are fabricated in like the actual Clone Wars. There's a Clone Wars episode arc where they're losing traction for the war in the Galactic Senate. Kind of like that, like Bail Organa and Padme and all these other senators are pushing for like, let's seek a peaceful resolution, let's seek something out. And basically Palpatine and Dooku say, well, we can't have that. So Palpatine basically allows a terrorist attack on Coruscant to basically scare the senators into funding more of the war and his power.
Was that the Cad Bane episodes?
No, because Cad Bane, he takes the Senate building hostage
Okay, I'm
in
thinking
order
something
to
else.
free Zero the Hutt. He's hired by
Oh,
the
that's right.
Hutts to do that.
Okay.
But yeah, so there's a whole thing
Coruscant has so
with
many
that. Um,
incidents.
That's the one where they have that. I distinctly remember this because they looked so unique. They have like the cleaning droids that turn into the bombs. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. Okay, now I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what
those
it. But
those
like
were
that's
very unique droids.
yeah, that's what Palpatine does. He gets all this power and he keeps increasing situations that keep him in power. So yeah, and he would continue probably to do that until he kind of solidifies his role as Galactic Emperor.
Yeah, that he does. And he does, because we see it. So, and then, so after the death of Count Dooku, on board the Invisible Hand above Coruscant, and the death of General Grievous on Utapau, Anakin Skywalker discovered that Palpatine was the Sith Lord. And after informing Jedi Master Mace Windu of his discovery, a Jedi task force led by Windu himself attempted to arrest him. After a brief duel, Palpatine appeared to be defeated. Skywalker arrived, and you know what happens. This is Episode 3, where, Anakin comes in, I need him, and then cuts off Mace's hand, and then Sidious, or Palpatine, force lightnings him out the window. And then that's the birth of Vader. Palpatine then proceeded to carry out the Great Jedi Purge, including the massacre of the Jedi Temple itself, which eliminated almost all the Jedi, while simultaneously wiping out all the leaders of the Confederacy on Mustafar, including the Separatist Council, Representative Newt Gunray, who was Anakin's last victim. The Separatist was reduced to a shadow of its former selves, thus bringing an end to the Clone Wars. And then, securing his new power position, Palpatine used the so-called Jedi Rebellion to issue the Declaration of a New Order and declared himself Emperor of the Galaxy in 19 BBY, replacing the Galactic Republic with the Galactic Empire. Likewise, Palpatine vowed that his newly formed empire would reign with 10,000 years of peace. And obviously that does not happen. Within this 19 years.
This might be the shortest lived faction or government in the galactic history.
Now that you say that, I'm pretty sure you're right.
Because the Infinite Empire lasted for centuries, if not millennia.
Mm-hmm. And the
Galactic Republic was
20,000? 25,000?
20 years or something like that.
It's like 25,000?
Probably even more, because maybe not. I think there's a scene in KOTOR where basically Bastila says something like the Republic is 10,000 years old or something like that. I don't know.
Shorter than the First Order. Yeah, because I would say, oh no, we don't know when the First Order started.
Well, the First Order, I'm very confused on the First Order's presence, because they have a leader, but they're not a government.
True. It's just
it's
just a military faction.
Yeah, the ruling government of the time is the New Republic.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever short time. That might be shorter than the New Republic might be shorter than the Galactic Empire, but
no, I would say the New Republic's longer, because you have that 30-year gap between 6 and 7.
That's true. Let's see, because
the New Republic
BBY is when Luke and Leia are born.
Mm-hmm. And the Empire, and we'll get to it actually with the fall of the Empire. So let's continue. Many people under the Empire supported the vision outlined in the Declaration of the New Order, largely due to the violence that had plagued the galaxy for so long. Many senators wholeheartedly supported the new government, while a number of more cautious senators chose to watch and wait to see how the new government would handle the affairs of state. In retrospect, the foundation of the Empire had already been set down during Palpatine's chancellorship, and all potential threats eliminated. Therefore, the transition from Republic to Empire was relatively smooth. And I know we're talking about canon or legends right now. In canon, if you ever watch The Bad Batch, it's an instant transition from the Republic to the Empire, almost instantaneously. Literally, it was like maybe a couple days, and then there's Hollow News. It's like, hey, you can exchange your Republic credits for Empire credits.
Yeah, and it has to do with like what we talked about Palpatine, solidifying power to the point that like him changing it to the Galactic Empire is nothing more than really like changing what's on the letterhead of official documents.
Yep.
He already has all the power to make all these decisions. In fact, there's the big line and we'll probably get to this in the beginning of A New Hope, where Tarkin's basically like, oh, the Emperor just said, I'm done with the Senate. And that's the end.
Yep. No more Senate.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then it is important to note not all senators liked what they saw. Shortly before the start of the Clone Wars in 2022 BBY, the Loyalist Committee was formed by, more Democratic senators. By the eve of the Empire, near the end of the Clone Wars in 19 BBY, the Loyalist Committee was reorganized into the Petition of 2000, who sought to bring the worries of these senators to Palpatine. The petition was led by Bail Organa, Mon Mothma, and Padme Amidala. Oh gosh, I can't talk. Palpatine's dismissal to their concerns was one factor that led Organa and Mothma to help found the Alliance to restore the Republic. So, and we're not going to really go much into the rebellion or even the First Order or the Resistance, because everybody knows the rebellion. You kind of see that, and then the First Order and the Resistance are so new. They're still adding more to that, even though they kind of stopped. But you can see Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, and Padme were all basically the founders of the Rebel Alliance before there was ever needed a Rebel Alliance.
Right. And if you're watching all your Star Wars on Disney Plus, all the deleted scenes are on Disney Plus. Like, you can go into all the movies and watch the deleted scenes. Even like the old ones, like the original trilogy, you can watch some of their deleted scenes, which is just funny. But in Revenge of the Sith, there is a cut deleted scene of a meeting between Padme, Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, and a couple other senators basically discussing this, and it is the beginning of the rebellion. It's a really great scene. You should go in and watch it, where it just gives a little broader context, especially considering like it's like really close to the scene where Padme basically asks Anakin, like, do you ever think we're on the wrong side? And feeling that, like, it's just gives a bigger context to the movie. But it's basically that, like, this loyalist committee and restoration to restore the Republic, which will eventually become the Rebel Alliance.
Yep. So, now we get to, that was the origins. Now we get into the imperialization. So with the rise of the Empire, all the institutions of the Old Republic found themselves either dismantled or modified beyond recognition. There was a riot in renaming all these things Imperial to glorify the new Emperor. Overnight, the Coruscant sector was renamed into the Imperial sector. Coruscant itself was renamed the Imperial City, or Imperial Center, and the Galactic City was renamed the Imperial City. The Galactic Senate became the Imperial Senate. The Grand Army of the Republic became the Imperial Army, with clone troopers. So they did use clones for a short while, which made up majority of the Galactic GAR. I can't remember what that was.
Grand Army of the Republic.
Acronyms. Reorganized the Stormtrooper Corps and the Republic Navy to become the Imperial Navy. So literally overnight, they just changed all the names. It's like, we're going to be Imperial now.
Right. And so one thing that's different from Legends and canon that they've kind of moved and kind of changed a little bit is that in the old Legends, the clone troopers were never really phased out. They just kind of died out because they aged quickly. So like by the time of like you see in Rebels, Rex is kind of like an old man, and he looks older than Boba Fett, who is also a clone. That's because the army has accelerated aging so they could breed troops faster.
Yep. Boba was the
Yes.
modified clone.
Mm-hmm. And so they just age out at that point in the old Legends. In fact, you hear about this mainly in the original Battlefront 2 game from 2005, where they basically, it's one of my favorite things because it's just so funny, and you can tell like that George Lucas writing had this in there. It's their talk about like the Empire, the Republic changed into the Empire, and it's like we got shiny new armor. And I always remember just the clone voice saying shiny new armor of the Stormtrooper armor. But yeah, and so they kind of phase out, and basically it's so funny because in the thing they say that the Empire went away from an all-clone army because Palpatine felt like it stinked of corruption.
Interesting.
Which he didn't care about corruption. I guess it was just a, appearance thing. But yeah, so I think that's interesting. Whereas in canon, which we might get to, the clone troopers are like decommissioned. They're basically removed in favor of, a variety of soldiers, of recruits and conscriptions and lots of things.
Yep. So,
which I hope we see more kind of that process in the next season of the Bad Batch.
Yes, I'm excited for that. But let's get back into Legends, 'cause I still have a lot. So they do rename all the intelligence bureaus to the Imperial Intelligence, just like how they renamed everything else overnight. Palpatine consolidated his power by launching purges against his opponents, most notably the Old Republic officers whom had not been able to be seduced to his side. Any officers who were held anti-imperial sentiments were arrested and executed by Admiral Mullen under Palpatine's orders. Palpatine's first purge of the Imperial Navy occurred while within 2 weeks of his empire's rule. And then during the first few years of the Empire, the galaxy saw a single largest military buildup in history, a permanent class of Moffs, and regional governors were established to more efficiently govern individual sectors and regions of the Empire. Popular support for the policies of Palpatine's administration was high. In addition, the Empire was also pursued a reconquest of the middle and outer rims of the galaxy, which included getting rid of any and all remaining separatist influence. And then, nonetheless, many members of the Imperial Navy military were unhappy about Palpatine's plan for imperialization. One Imperial officer in particular, the headmaster of the Imperial Academy, Gentis, who lost all but one of his sons to Palpatine's warmongering ways during the imperialization effort, formed a military coup against Palpatine and poisoned him with Arth-6, which as a means to bring peace to the Empire, something he realized that Palpatine would never pursue. The coup, while initially successful, ultimately failed. So, they tried to poison Palpatine, but didn't work. Because
if only he succeeded.
Right. then it wouldn't be as bad. You would just have a Darth Vader to deal with.
Right, but I wonder what, like, I guess with Palpatine gone, I guess Yoda and Obi-Wan would be like, well, we can handle Vader.
Right? It's like, oh, it's just Vader. It's fine. We can take down that broken Jedi half robot. It's fine.
Yeah, well.
So, let's see. Okay, I'm going to try and fly through this. So we get to the Dark Times. As this process unfolded, the Emperor saw the respected Kamasi as a threat to his new order, so he ordered the devastation of their home planet. Kamas, a group of the Bothans infiltrators, responsible for sabotaging Kamas's shield generators, leaving the planet vulnerable to Imperial orbital bombing. So, this empire also bombed a planet, just like how the Sith Empire bombed Terrace. If you ever play KOTOR 1, it's not fun. And then in 18 BBY, the Emperor constructed the huge asteroid-shaped superweapon Eye of Palpatine in order to use to destroy a Jedi enclave on Belsavis. However, the deadly superweapon was sabotaged by 2 Jedi Knights, and the Jedi on Belsavis managed to escape. That I did not know. I did not know he had a superweapon before the Death Star.
Yeah, he just really cannot let the super weapon thing go.
No. Tries once. Oh, it didn't work. Oh, we'll try again, but make it bigger. Because this one was asteroid size. It wasn't moon size. Many Jedi also rebelled against Palpatine's regime. Oli Starstone was in a group of Order 66 Jedi survivors, along with Ronan Shireen, attempted to reestablish the Jedi Council, but were unsuccessful. The group fled to Kashyyyk to find out any Jedi survived there, but the Empire launched a massive takeover on the planet. Darth Vader killed Ronan Shireen and some of the Jedi, with Starstone barely escaping with her life. In which anybody remembers?
Question.
Yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I'm pretty sure this is the start of Force Unleashed. I'm pretty sure.
I think you're right, and I'm pretty sure. Let me look.
Because I think Ronan. No. Starkiller's original name is starts with a G.
It's Galen Merrick.
Garen Malik, yeah.
Is his real name.
Mm-hmm. And then a Wookiee among them, named Chewbacca, fled to the city to find his family. Meanwhile, Firas Olin, along with these friends, including Jedi Master Solus, caused much havoc on the Imperial-controlled planets, including a rebellion on the planet of Balasa. The 2 Jedi break-ins of the destroyed Jedi Temple in Coruscant, and the destruction of the Imperial garrison and weapon munition center on Naboo. And then we get to, in 1 BBY, the Emperor and Vader were at the targets of an attempted coup of a group of treacherous Imperial officers led by Grand Moff Tracha. I think that's how you say it. Tracta saw the Sith as foolish and they saw him foolish and I think archaic, and believed the Empire should not be ruled by a two-man cult. They planned to use the batch of Ultra Stormtroopers loyal only to them to destroy the 2 Sith Lords. However, their plot failed, in part because the internal fighting between the 2 co-conspirators. Go figure.
Yeah, if only they succeeded.
Yeah. All these plans to take to wipe out the Empire, and they all just fell flat. So I'll try and skim through the resistance to the Imperial rule, because this is where we're going to get to New Hope and the original trilogy. In 2 BBY, after the true nature of the Empire became clear, 3 of the most influential senators, Bail Organa of Alderaan, Garm Bel Iblis of Corellia, and Mon Mothma of Trindrilla, along with others, were the brink of starting a great rebellion against the Empire. To lure the dissidents out of hiding, the Emperor and Darth Vader had Galen Marek, Vader's secret Sith apprentice, rally the rebels brought together by him, and they met in secret on Corellia and signed the Corellian trilogy treaty. This officially formed the Alliance to restore the Republic, and more commonly known as the Rebel Alliance. So, in Legends, Starkiller, as we know as Galen Marek, is technically the founder of the Rebel Alliance with all these senators.
Right. He's the one who gathers them initially on Vader's orders and then kind of realizes that they're right.
Yep.
Through lots of things about that.
And fun fact, his family crest is the Rebel Alliance emblem in Legends.
That's interesting. Which makes sense because it's kind of a play on the Jedi crest a lot. It's like simpler and wider.
Mm-hmm.
But so I guess that makes sense.
So I'm going to skip through some of this. A key instrument, the enforcement of the doctrine of this. Let's see, what doctrine was it? The Tarkin doctrine. So as the threat of the rebellion allowed Palpatine endorse the Tarkin doctrine to rule by fear of force rather than force itself. If anything, Palpatine welcomed the formation of the fledgling Rebel Alliance as a legitimate excuse to remove the last vestiges of the Republic and tighten the grip on the galaxy. So he let them spry up just so he could put fear, basically the fear into the universe of everybody.
Right, and I think this is the Palpatine tactic because he spent all this time gathering his power based on the necessity of war, and he left the Senate in charge for whatever reason, probably because he thought if he changed too much too quickly, it wouldn't work for him.
Mm-hmm.
But then he gets this new conflict and his gears start turning. He's like, well, I can use this to like solidify more power in all of this. And that's what he does, which is probably why the rebellion isn't wiped out right away.
Yeah.
Yeah, his own hubris and pride in thinking, oh, well, they'll never be strong enough to take me down.
Yep.
A lot is his downfall.
So then a key instrument in the enforcement of the doctrine was intended to be the Death Star, a moon-sized planet, moon-sized space station with the sufficient firepower to easily destroy a planet with a single discharge of its powerful superweapon, which we all see in A New Hope. We see it destroy Alderaan, sadly. We do see it in Rogue One, where we see a less powerful version of the Death Star laser literally wipe out Jeddah, the city of Jeddah, or a city on Jeddah. Jeddah's the planet. So now we get to the fracturing and warlord era. The Empire, however, was too large to be destroyed in a single blow. For the next 15 years, the rebels soon renamed the Alliance of the Free Planets and then the New Republic. So this is after Return of the Jedi. Fought to free the galaxy from the former Imperials, styling themselves as independent warlords as well as Imperial loyalists, such as Thrawn and Yasane Starred. I think that's how you say that name. But this is where Thrawn comes in. Thrawn comes in after Return of the Jedi in Legends. Let's see here. Immediately following the Imperial defeat at the Battle of Endor, Grand Vizsla sat Prestige siege control of the Empire. However, his lack of charisma, force powers, and terrifying presence that both Emperor Palpatine and Darth Vader used kept the Empire together. Yeah, his rule of the Empire did not last because he didn't have anything that Palpatine or Vader had. And let's be honest, if you see Vader face to face, you would be terrified.
Yeah, and I think that there's certain Star Wars media, both very recently and not very recently, that confirms that.
Yes. Yes. And then, so now we're going to go into the Imperial Resurgence. The Galactic Empire had, for all purposes, purposes ceased to exist by 8 ABY. So this is 8 years after the Battle of Yavin. With what Imperial loyalists remained continuing to lose ground until the return of Grand Admiral Thrawn, a military genius, the only non-human to climb the ranks of the Imperial Navy, and the last remaining Grand Admiral. So, as I said earlier, this Thrawn really takes control and comes into play in the Star Wars universe and Legends after Return. Though surprisingly enough, his reign did not last long, which is very surprising. In 10 ABY, the surviving members in the Imperial Ruling Council under Dengar's leadership gathered several brilliant Imperial warlords to organize a military campaign into the Galactic core. The warlords were emboldened by the late Grand Admiral Thrawn's triumphs and accomplished against the New Republic, which was still recovering from the devastating Thrawn campaign. As I said, Thrawn retreated and didn't come out great. And then everybody else after him has just been, they go in power and then quickly descend or die.
And here's the thing, like, Palpatine never thought that he would be dethroned. He never worried about what would happen if he lost. I mean, he had some kind of contingency plans, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But he didn't really ever think that was going to happen. No. He thought that he would rule forever, and eventually there would be a new apprentice that would kill Darth Vader and reestablish the rule of two and keep that going.
Mm-hmm. So, talking about Palpatine, now we get into the return of Palpatine.
Somehow. Oh, wait, different. That's canon.
In 11 ABY, when it seemed the Empire would never return, the hopes were lost, and the New Republic would finally close in victory. An enigmatic figure took the title of Emperor. However, this person was no new Emperor, for Emperor Palpatine had returned, returning in flesh-clone bodies, imbued with the dead despot's spirit. He proceeded to rebuild his fallen empire, and 6 years later finally regained the strength to again challenge the New Republic. Oh, whoa, it's like we've seen this before. Just better written.
Yeah.
Oops. Did I say that?
This is also a point to make about this Palpatine, because I'm sure that everyone is picturing the Palpatine from Rise of Skywalker. But this Palpatine looked even younger than Clone Wars Palpatine.
That's true. He did make himself a lot younger because it was actual good clones.
Right. And so, I mean, which makes sense. Like, Palpatine seizes control of the Kaminoan cloning facilities after the descent, like after the Republic is over.
Mm-hmm.
And so he has access to all this cloning technology. It makes sense that he would have a clone backed up. And so what's interesting is that he basically possesses this clone.
Mm-hmm.
So he has all his knowledge, but he like looks young and like attractive and not like a raisin shooting lightning.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, and then this is interesting. Some of this stuff I didn't even know. The Emperor turned Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker to the dark side of the Force to serve as his new supreme commander of the Imperial forces, but Skywalker defected back to the New Republic. In the astromech droid R2-D2 programmed the Emperor's all aspiring superweapons, the World Devastators, to destroy each other during the first battle of Mon Calamari. So, interesting. Luke did fall to the dark side.
Yeah, and you can read about that in the New Republic books of Legends. And kind of all of that going on with Luke turning to the dark side, which I think is interesting. I believe, not to be spoiler, but I believe it's Leia who brings him back.
I believe so.
It's either Leia or
it's through some of it.
It's either Leia or it's Mara Jade. It's one of them.
Okay.
But they basically his family has to bring him back. Um, and I can't remember exactly how Palpatine turns him to the dark side. It's kind of like a similar tactic that you kind of see in Return of the Jedi, where it's like, oh, well, we'll just hurt everyone you love.
Mm-hmm. So, in the Battle of Pinnacle Base, Palpatine summoned a Force Storm to obliterate a New Republic fleet, orbiting Da Sucha 5. However, Skywalker and his sister Leia, Organa Solo, used the Force, causing the storm to annihilate Palpatine and his flagship, the Eclipse-class Dreadnought Eclipse. So, they were strong enough to take down a giant superweapon Star Destroyer.
I expect nothing from the offspring of Anakin Skywalker and Padme Amidala.
Fair enough. That is true. So, and then I guess we'll go into the deaths and collapse of the Empire. Following Palpatine's final death, Kanor Jack seized the Imperial throne. However, the Imperial fleet was left rudderless without orders from the Emperor. They retreated from the core worlds, and the Empire quickly crumbled. Not long after, the New Republic had reclaimed Coruscant from the Dark Empire. After its fall, the new Jedi Order was created by Luke Skywalker and the Jedi Praxium on Yavin 4, where he became the Order's first Grand Master. This had undone Palpatine's extermination of the Jedi Order that had begun the formation of the Empire in 19 BBY. And funny enough, that is where the Jedi Academy games come into place.
Yes. It's also noted to say that in the old canon, the Empire, in Legends, the Empire is still around like 30 years later. It just exists as a different entity. It's called the Imperial Remnant, which is like the remaining of the Empire. And then it forms to like the Galactic Empire, which is kind of more in like a symbiotic, like peaceful relationship with the Republic, even though there's tension still there. But it never really goes away.
Yeah. And reading Legends, you find out the Empire is there way after Luke.
Yes.
Like
and so
100
basically,
years.
well, it's interesting, and this is a little spoiler, but basically, so Han and Leia have 3 children: Anakin Solo, and then Jason and Jaina Solo, who are twins. Jaina marries a Imperial named Jagged Fell, who becomes like the Imperial head of state and basically starts what's called the Fell Dynasty, which survives all the way to Darth Krayt, which is like centuries after Luke is dead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
So, you want to take our break?
Yeah, let's get that break going. So welcome to the break of the show. And this is where we talk about all things that don't have to do with the podcast, or they do have to do with the podcast. They don't have to do with the lore of Legends versus canon. And this is a time that I remind you that we do have a Patreon. You can come find the link in the episode description or go on Patreon and find us there if you want to support us. There are different tiers with different benefits, from just basically getting ad-free episodes all the way to coming up on the show with us and once a month talking about various topics. If you cannot support us financially, that's okay. There are other ways to support the show, and one of those is to leave ratings and reviews, either on Apple or Spotify. And we do have a new review to read today.
Oh, we do?
Yes.
I didn't even see that.
Yeah. So this comes from the Vino Jedi, 5 stars, an elegant podcast for a more civilized age. He says, as an expanded universe, now Legends fan, I'm so glad this podcast is on the air. Austin and Ben bring a ton of information from episode to episode and make it fun to listen to. The honor they show to what came before is refreshing and sets this podcast apart from other piles of Star Wars podcasts out there. I can't wait to tune into every episode. This is the podcast you're looking for.
That's awesome.
Yes. So thank you for that review. Awesome review.
Yes, and like Austin said earlier, if you guys ever want to join us on the show, we just had our last week was our first patron chat. We went over fan theories and all that. As far as I believe, we decided the next patron chat we're going to be going and talking about the Obi-Wan series, since the final episode will be that Wednesday into that Friday.
Yeah, it will. I'll have to make sure I'm caught up, because at some point in there, I'm going to Florida for Galaxy's Edge.
Oh, that's right. You're taking a trip to Batu.
Yeah, so I'll have to figure out to make sure I'm caught up.
Oh, yeah. You guys staying at the resort down there?
No, we're staying off-site.
Oh, okay. Well, I will let you know. They added more merch. Like, recently, this week. It's too much.
Of course they did. Of course they did.
But, alright, let's get back into the show with Canon.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, now we're back. Now we're going to go into the canon of the Empire. So, a lot of this will transfer over from Legends, because a lot of the Imperial stuff from Legends was in the original films. So, early foundations, obviously, it was based on the Sith Empire back during the Old Republic's time period. So this is like Old Republic, not like the Galactic Republic that we know. Following the defeat of the Sith during the final war with the Jedi Order, or for at least 1,000 years, the dominant governing body of the galaxy was the Democratic Galactic Republic, which was governed by the Galactic Senate and led by an elected Supreme Chancellor. In the last decades of its existence, the Republic Senate became embroiled in bureaucracy, rendering it woefully ineffective of the governing body. Darth Sidious, the Dark Lord of the Sith, known publicly as Senator Sheev Palpatine of Naboo, privately laminated the declining state of the Senate, noting that the Republic was not what it once was. When, he was pulling the strings the entire time.
Right. And I think this is I meant to say this earlier, but I really like how the language here talks about publicly known as Sheev Palpatine, that Sheev Palpatine is a mask that Darth Sidious puts on. Who he really is Darth Sidious.
Yeah.
And the personality of Palpatine, the Supreme Chancellor, of Sheev Palpatine, is a persona. It's fake. It's not ruse. Real. None of that is real.
Mm-hmm. Yep. 13 years before the Republic's end as a democracy, Darth Sidious orchestrated the invasion of Naboo by the Trade Federation in order to create a leadership crisis in the Senate. In the decade that followed, Sidious secretly manipulated galactic events to the extent that the war became inevitable. Besides persuading a dead Jedi Master, Cephadius, to create a secret clone army, he also tasked his Sith apprentice Darth Tyrannus, also known as Count Dooku, with exacerbating, excuse me pronouncing words today, political tensions in the Republic and engineering a separatist crisis. So, yeah, he did all that. And we see that, we see it through, the prequels. We see a lot of it through the Clone Wars, mainly through the Clone Wars, because we get all that back-end knowledge between 2 and 3. And then, for the birth of the New Order, As the war neared its end in 19 BBY, the Jedi Order had grown skeptical about the Chancellor after the accumulation of emergency power. They began to suspect that a plot to destroy the Jedi was close to fruition. The Jedi Council started discussing forcibly removing Palpatine from office and temporarily overseeing the Senate in order to remain political stability during the transition period. So this is during Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. And, during this, Sidious executed Order 66 to purge the entire Jedi Order. Anakin then became known as Darth Vader, as Palpatine's apprentice. And a lot of things happened, which we see in a lot of the new stuff, especially in Obi-Wan. If you watch the first episode, you know what I'm talking about. That first scene.
I need them to stop with that.
Order 66.
I need them to stop with opening series with Order 66.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's just the same. We know what happens. It's just like Spider-Man. We know what happens to Uncle Ben. You don't need to explain it every single time. Same as Batman.
Right.
We know what happens.
Right.
We know why he's Batman.
And it's just like between Bad Batch, Ahsoka, or not Ahsoka, but season 7 of Clone Wars, Jedi Fallen Order, the actual footage of Order 66 from the films.
Yep. We get a lot of it.
Yeah, it's just...
Yeah, it happens. And then, so despite their order being wiped out, certain Jedi survived the initial purge. Many of them went into hiding after Grand Master Yoda and Master Obi-Wan Kenobi fought their way to the temple and transmitted a holographic message warning to the other Jedi about the Republic trap waiting for them there. Right before the two masters failed to destroy the Sith and headed to the exile themselves. Some of them, however, were initially hunted down and either killed, taken prisoner, or turned to the dark side, as part of the agency of dark side adepts known as Inquisitors. Shortly afterwards, Sidious turned his eyes to the Confederacy of Independent Systems and dispatched Darth Vader to wipe out New Gunray and the rest of his separatist government leaders on Mustafar following the Imperial financial arson Creuss plundered the Trade Federation's account to fund the new Imperial government. So, yeah, they took all their money.
Yeah, and this is something we didn't cover in Legends, but it happened. Palpatine basically, towards the end of the Clone Wars, he basically orchestrates an invasion of the banking clan and basically gets the banking clan under Sol Republic rule.
Mm-hmm.
So that he can basically control the galaxy's finances. And once he brings the Trade Federation and the Commerce Guild into the fold of there, it's just, not only does he have the political power of the galaxy, he now holds their economic system.
Yep. He thought of everything, down to the money. Which, I mean, making a Galactic Republic into the Imperial Galactic Empire, you kind of need a lot of capital for that. So now we get to the imperialization of the canon. The existing government bodies were all renamed to change the authority of the civil and military superstructure of the Old Republic. Were overhauled immediately under the personal direction of the Emperor. So they were all renamed Imperial, basically. In addition, the former roundel of the Republic was replaced with the new Imperial crest, a dawn on almost everything having to do with Palpatine's empire. With every day that passed, Palpatine's hold of their galaxy grew tighter. For the next decade and a half, Imperial rule, bolstered by the military created to fight in the Clone Wars, dominated the galaxy, and was largely unchallenged. Happy for peace at the end of the fighting and rise the Empire brought, the new government welcomed by people tired of the Clone Wars. On the planet of Pantora, citizens cheered as clone stormtroopers marched past them near the Imperial informational station, where a message played on announcing personal chain codes and a new currency. So this is in Bad Batch, I believe, right? Yeah. After the Separatist Droid army was promptly shut down, its navy was dismantled at locations across the galaxy, such as the Bringy shipyards. However, various droid models and Separatist technology, except Imperial operation, and managed to work their way onto the black market, and many models taken from Separatist frigates and destroyers, including pieces from Admiral Trek's warship, the Invincible. Any Jedi survivors Sidious purged were systematically hunted down and killed either by Darth Vader or any of the Emperor's Inquisitors in the years that followed the rise of the New Order, when Zubon and Cornori and his nest of fellow Jedi were all found within the Jedi Shrine on Enorat. I think that's how you say that. They were all forced and separated to flee, only to be tracked down and killed by an Inquisitor one by one. Within 2 decades, only a few known Jedi were still alive and in exile to avoid the Empire's wrath. And then, in order to draw out any of the Jedi and the children capable of touching the Force, the Empire charged the Inquisitors with not only tracking the Order 66 survivors down, but also preventing Force-sensitive youth in the galaxy from becoming Jedi. Which we do see that in Rebels with the... Oh god, the 5th brother and 6th sister?
7th sister.
I thought she's the 6th. 7th was the one in Fallen Order, I thought.
2nd. So...
There's the 2nd and...
2nd and 9th are on Fallen Order.
That's where
the 8th brother, the 5th brother, the 7th sister, and the 8th brother are in Rebels. The 6th brother is in the Ahsoka novel.
Mm-hmm.
The 3rd sister is in Kenobi.
Yep.
We haven't seen the 4th.
Or the 1st.
Well, the Grand Inquisitors.
The Grand Inquisitors first.
I'm pretty sure the Grand Inquisitor is the first Inquisitor.
Okay.
I think they're 10. I think there is a 9th brother. Oh, the 9th sister. And then I think there's a 10th somewhere. But I don't know.
They still have yet to flesh out the Inquisitors, like, pecking order, really.
Right. And I don't think we figured out there's the 3rd Inquisitor in Kenobi. I don't think she got a number.
3rd. They straight up say 3rd sister.
That's Reva.
Yeah.
The other one.
Oh, I thought that was the 7th sister.
It's hard for me to tell because it's so different.
Obviously, that's the 5th brother. I'm pretty sure that's the 7th sister. I mean, I can't tell. You can't tell from the animation they used to. She has now. I mean, Kenobi and Rebels is a 4-year gap. Yeah, it's a 4-year gap.
Something like that. I have no idea.
So
we'll find.
We'll see. We'll find out. We'll probably find out in the series anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So then, seeking to make examples of worlds who continue to harbor successionist tendencies, Moff Wilhelm Tarkin was assigned to make an example of Antar 4, a populous moon that had been a part of the Separatist Alliance and involved in a scheme involving Republic intelligence to train locals into well-armed resistance groups. So, that's cool. And then now we get to the age of the Empire. At some point during the reign, the Empire undertook an expansion effort known simply as the Imperial Expansion. It was during this time that they constructed a military installation on the volcanic world of Navarro, which Navarro is the planet in Mandalorian, right? Is that Mandalorian?
I think so. For me, it sounds way too much like Navarra, which is a country in Thetis, the world of Dragon Age. So that's all I can think of.
That's fair. Oh my god, there's so many names between Dragon Age, Assassin's Creed, and Star Wars that are so similar.
Yep. Yep.
All right. And then in total secrecy, the Empire took over the construction of a massive battle station with enough firepower to destroy an entire planet, later known simply as the Death Star. That would have formerly have been a separatist project engineered by Geonosian Archduke Poggle the Lesser's Hive's colony for Darth Tyrannus, who was entrusted with the project's plans for safekeeping throughout the Clone Wars, with supplies coming from various planets and locations such as the Sentinel Base and Geonosis. As the Galactic Empire grew, Palpatine moved closer to his ultimate plan of ruling the entire galaxy and unlocking the secrets of the Sith Masters who had come before him. With the near extermination of the Jedi Order and the Empire's falling in power and strength, the Emperor ultimately planned to possess the powers of the dark side to reshape reality itself into something of his own creation, and the omnipotent Empire would allow all the galaxy's inhabitants to be held in his dark embrace. Which we kind of get that a little bit in Rebels season... Is that season 4?
With the world between worlds?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is why he would probably want that, because I think there's more to the world between worlds other than its like time travel capabilities.
Well,
I think there's a lot more influence it can have.
I wouldn't say... I guess it would be time travel. Everything connects, past, present, future is all connected within that world. Yeah, it's still a mystery.
I am not the biggest fan of the world between worlds, because at this point, like, if you're gonna save Ahsoka, like, at that point, why not just try to go back and stop Anakin from betraying Mace Windu? Like, at what point are you gonna say, oh, well, this is enough? Like,
that's fair. And then, let's see here. A major turning point against the Empire's advance into the Outer Rim occurred on 11 BBY. The Imperial forces, commanded by Captain Ray Salone, engaging in a small skirmish in the vital rim, into the inner rim of Gorse. Let's see. The Gorse conflict ultimately ended by transferring the local thwarted mining operations to Imperial line of Baron Lero. Danth, while Sedula and Jarrus departed on heavily modified light freighter Ghost, would become an essential and eventually formation of the Rebel Alliance. So, during the age of during all these like different conflicts, Hera and Kanan were active on helping out other people. They were smugglers. Think of Han and Chewie. That's what they did for a living. Hera was kind of like, secretly doing other things, being part of the Rebel Alliance. They were both active.
Yeah, and I think this is something that's a little different than Legends a little bit. Legends kind of has the rebellion like forming like almost right away, and like always forming into this like centralized power. In canon, they start as all these little factions that aren't really even united until what is the planet that the Death Star plans are on?
Planet with Death Stars.
With the Death Star plans.
Scarif?
Scarif, until the Battle of Scarif, and that's when like the Rebel Alliance makes its stand, really. Like the end of Rebels and the Battle of Scarif, the Rebel Alliance, like, boom, we are the Rebel Alliance, a force that is making a decision here.
Yep. So meanwhile, more and more worlds within the Empire began to realize its true intentions. After various massacres on Kashyyyk and increasingly brutal tactics, such as the Empire committing genocide on Lasat, homeworld of Lasans, a growing number of the citizens of the galaxy began to rebel against Imperial domination. In 14 BBY, various survivors of the Antor atrocity and other malcontents joined together under the leadership of former Captain Birch Teller, who organized them into a rebel cell, intent on stalling the development of the Emperor's newest weapon under construction at Geonosis, which we all know is the Death Star. I'm pretty sure.
Yes, I believe so.
After lengthy fleet redeployments and the discovery of mole within the Imperial ranks, Tarkin aboard the Imperial-class Star Destroyer Extracrix? I don't know how you say that Star Destroyer's name. I think that's his main Star Destroyer, if I recall, too.
Executrix.
Executrix.
Is how I would say it.
Managed to disable the rebel warship and capture the dissidents after a brief battle and timely arrival of Star Destroyers, Complainant, and Enforcer. God, their names for their Star Destroyers. Around 14 years into Palpatine's role as Emperor, the Empire had begun its expansion in the Outer Rim. Worlds like Gelusan saw occupation development leading to a rampant pollution and industrialization to support the Imperial war machine. So now we get into the Galactic Civil War, which I'm starting to wrap this up. This is where, we're going to get into Star Wars Rebels and the original trilogy, Rogue One. I would say Kenobi, but it's still being fleshed. Kenobi still is just now happening.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't really part of much anything at the moment.
Right. If you want the formation of kind of like the Rebellion and the Galactic Civil War, watch the seasons, all 4 seasons of Rebels, read the Ahsoka novel, all kinds of things like that. That'll help you understand. Even playing Jedi Fallen Order can help you with that.
True. So, the aggressive dislocation of persons and high tax eventually led to a development of small and localized, albeit serious, upheaval in 5 BBY against Imperial authority on Lothal. Among these cells on Lothal were the Spectres, who were named the Ghost when rumor of discovery of Jarrus' Jedi identity and his duty on leading the Spectres began to emerge. The Empire sent the Grand Inquisitor to drag him down. So this is where we're going to get into Rebels, as I said before, with Ezra, Kanan, Hera, and all of them. And then another time, local insurgency was carried out by Guerrera partisans on the desert moon of Jeddah, an Imperial procreate in the ancient streets of Jeddah City as part of their larger campaign against the Galactic Empire. Unknown to many of them, Director Orson Krennic and Grand Moff Tarkin had decided to test the capability of the Empire's new superweapon-equipped battle station, the Death Star, by firing a super laser at the city using a single reactor ignition. So instead of 8 or 10 reactors, there's only one, and it literally leveled an entire city. We see this in Rogue One. In 0 BBY, a group of rebels led under the call sign Rogue One would capture the brilliant plans of the Death Star, which had just completed after nearly 2 decades on work of Scarif. So, we get that. However, they received support from the Alliance fleet under Admiral Radis, whose forces engaged the Imperial Star Destroyers above Scarif and aimed to destroy the Shield Gate. Rogue One was able to transmit the stolen plans to the fleet above, but by the order of Grand Moff Tarkin, they, along with Director Orson Krennic, were eradicated by a low-powered blast from the arrived Death Star and destroyed the Citadel and surrounding area. And then we get into New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. That's the Galactic Civil War in a nutshell.
Right.
Then we get the fragmentation of the Order, with destruction of the Death Star and death of the Order's Toleration rulers. Many worlds across the galaxy began to celebrate the Empire's defeat over Endor, with the incorrect notion the war was over. It was not. Fully. Shutting down all travel and communications into and out of Anarat sector, Governor Abrid established the Iron Blockade and formed his own remnant faction. Citizens who dare to fight back and speak of so-called rumors of the Empire's defeat were hunted and eliminated by Commander Bra and his purge troopers. And then this is where we're going to get into the new Battlefront 2 from 2015. With the Empire fragmented, the Rebel Alliance embarked on numerous campaigns such as the Beltil Liberation and the Battle of Kawa City to capitalize its stunning success over Endor, resulting in numerous Imperial defeats. 20 days after Endor, the posthumous contingency plan of the late Emperor, known as Operation Cinder, was delivered to numerous Imperial captains by messenger droids. The operation consisted of coordinated attacks on strategic worlds affiliated with the rebellion, which the Emperor considered a final act of revenge against his enemies, including his home world of Naboo. So if you play Battlefront 2 in 2015, that is like the second or third mission you start doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we get to the birth of the New Republic. Eventually, the Galactic Empire had contended with the New Republic, a rival galactic government formed in the wake of the rebellion's victory over Endor, suffering a string of defeats against the Republic, including loss of Severcaros and Malastar, along with a failed attempt to restart the former separatist droid foundries in Geonosis. The Empire gradually began to crumble. With most of the Empire veteran troops killed on the second Death Star or Vader's command ship, the Executor, military policy and tactical clumsiness soon hampered the Empire's efforts at a concentrated strike against the Republic. God, words. And then, there's still more? Well, we basically, to the Empire's end, they had the Battle of Jakku, and that is where really the events, where the Empire truly fell, was over the Battle of Jakku, which you do play in Star Wars Battlefront 2 of 2015.
And it's like, Rey is basically moving all around the remnants of that battle.
Yes. Yep. And that's pretty much it in canon for the Galactic Empire. That was a lot.
Yeah.
Next week shouldn't be that much.
No. The Galactic Empire, it's a big thing. It lasts a long time. There's a lot that happens in Legends that we didn't talk about that we'll probably do. We might do a Galactic Empire Revisited to talk about their insurgents and like post really the Imperial remnant, post Thrawn, post the return of Palpatine, and how they become like a peaceful, quote unquote, peaceful group in the galaxy. But that's the gist. They're the bad guys. They don't really know what to do with when Palpatine dies. They don't know what to do with their leader gone, especially with so much fear that Palpatine and Vader held.
Yeah, without those two holding the Empire up, no one knows what to do, like, at all.
Yeah. And you kind of see that. You see various leaders kind of grasping at straws for power. And the Republic is just, the New Republic and what remains the Rebel Alliance is just very centralized. Like, their leaders are clear. It's Mon Mothma, it's Leia Organa, it's Lando Calrissian, it's Han Solo, and in some ways it's Luke, even though he goes off to do his own thing after Endor. But yeah.
Yep. That it is.
So, you got anything else?
No, not really. Everybody just keep watching Obi-Wan. More cool things are happening in Obi-Wan. This episode was a doozy, I will say. So, curious where it's going to go after this. We only have 3 more episodes.
I know.
I will say, I'm pretty sure when we get Tales of the Jedi, that new animated Dave Filoni is doing. So it's a 6-episode miniseries. 3 episodes going to be about young Count Dooku before he turned to a Sith. And then 3 episodes will be strictly about Ahsoka, her upbringing. And then from what we see in the teaser trailer, we might see the fight with the sixth brother.
Yeah, that's what I saw, which would be interesting.
To see that animated put on screen is like, this is how she got her white crystals. Because the fight's awesome if you haven't read the Ahsoka novel, because she fights this dude without a lightsaber.
Yeah, it's really a testament to Ahsoka's power and how determined she is for her own survival. And like, the Ahsoka novel is really a good story about how Ahsoka gets to where she is in Rebels and how she kind of comes into like, okay, I'm not a Jedi, but what does that mean for me? What do I need to be for the galaxy?
Yep.
And it's awesome. Well, if that's all, we'll see you next week. Thanks for listening.
And may the Force be with you. Thank you for listening to Holocron Histories, Star Wars Canon versus Legends. You can find us on the Robots Radio Discord at robotsradio.net. You can also follow us on Twitter at SWHoloHistories and contact us at holocronhistories@gmail.com. All right. Cool. Well, thank you for anybody who is still in chat. I know She-Cup was chatting at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, thank you all. We'll be here again next week.
That we will.
Yeah.